So the design of work is very important for good outcomes in the workplace. And in doing so, it's important to consider as many relevant factors as possible. So let's just take a fairly straightforward lifting and loading task, a manual handling task. If we look at that, there's a lot of established information that lets you know how much someone can lift, how far they can lift it, take into account the range, the strength of the worker, the load on the tissue, the health, a lot of these factors, and then you can design it so that the load on the tissue falls significantly lower than the population-based tissue limits, in which case, very likely to be safe. So, and that approach is shown here in this illustration from occupational biomechanics from Schaefer et al. So if you look on the left-hand side, there of the table, you see that there's the action. At a certain point, the load on the tissue goes up, comes back, but it's way lower than the limit, so it's very likely to be safe, very unlikely for there to be an injury. Then if you look across on the right, for whatever reason, something heavier was lifted or it was done not carefully or a different range, and the load went above the safe limit and much higher possibility or likelihood of an injury. So that shows how it can work. The problem is, though, very often injuries occur at a point when there should be significant buffer, margin of error, and there should be no injury. So how do we understand that? Like, how do we explain that and design work so that doesn't occur? If we refer back to Schaefer et al., and there's a second part of that figure, you can see the lower part there now. It looks a little different because the safe tissue limit is not constant. It's constant in theory. If we were machines, it would be constant, but in practice, it's not constant. And that's and that's why we need to consider various organizational and cognitive factors as well as physical ones. And these are things like fatigue, problems with attention, problems with vigilance, situational awareness, not understanding the task. And these things can be mediated by practices such as job rotation, built-in breaks, built-in stretching exercises, daily limits, mechanical aids, designing out that task, making sure people understand the task, making sure they understand the rules, and all these other things that can come in and can make it safer that are not just physical. And so this is why the design of work needs to be multidisciplinary and needs to consider all these different factors and how they work together to make work safe and effective.